Mind-object identity, a solution to the hard problem. All right, let's jump right into this. We're diving into a genuinely fascinating explainer today, covering Riccardo Manzotti's paradigm-shifting theory on the absolute nature of consciousness. We are tackling what is arguably the greatest mystery in human history. Where exactly does consciousness come from? For decades, science, philosophy, you name it, they've all tried to squeeze consciousness into the brain. But what if we've literally been looking in the wrong place this whole time? Seriously, take a second and look at the screen you're watching this on right now. Where exactly does your experience of that screen exist? Common sense, and honestly most modern neuroscience, tells us the screen is out there in the real world, while your experience of it is just some mental representation being generated right now inside your dark, quiet skull. But wait, have you ever actually seen a mental representation? Manzotti argues that this whole artificial split between the physical world and our mental experience of it is exactly what created the infamous, hard problem of consciousness in the first place.
To really ground this mystery, the source text uses a super simple, everyday thought experiment. Picture a woman named Jacqueline looking at an ordinary apple. Jacqueline perceives an apple that's red, round, and shiny. Now, pretty much everyone agrees that the physical apple sitting on the table is red, round, and shiny. But what about Jacqueline's conscious experience of that apple? If we're strict physicalists, meaning we believe absolutely everything that exists has to be part of the physical world, then Jacqueline's experience has to physically exist somewhere, right? It needs a physical location, and it must possess the exact properties she's experiencing.
But here's where things get really tricky. If consciousness lives inside the brain, like traditional mind-brain theories claim, we hit a massive empirical roadblock. Nothing inside Jacqueline's brain is red, round, or shiny. Her brain is, well, gray, squishy, and runs on electrical impulses and chemicals. How on earth could a gray, squishy brain process possibly be identical to the vivid experience of a red, shiny apple? Manzotti argues it simply cannot. The brain just doesn't have the properties of our experience, so looking for consciousness in there is basically an empirical mistake.
And this brings us to Manzotti's radical yet elegantly simple solution: mind-object identity. Since the brain doesn't have the properties of our experience, we have to find a physical candidate that actually does. And guess what? There's really only one candidate, and it's hiding in plain sight. It's the external object itself. The theory of mind-object identity proposes that your experience of a physical object is utterly, completely identical to the object itself. Your consciousness is literally out of your head. It is located out there in the external world. One's experience of an object is identical with the object itself. So the absolute crucial point here is that Jacqueline's experience isn't some mental simulation or a hallucination playing like a movie inside her head. Her experience is the physical apple sitting right there on the table. Manzotti suggests we don't need to invent all these mysterious mental properties. There's no magical, metaphysical gap between you and the world. The properties you find in your experience, the redness, the roundness, they are just the physical properties of the world. When you perceive an object, you are identical to that object. Now, you might be wondering, wait, how does this not completely violate the laws of physics? Well, to understand this, we have to look at Galilean relativity. Think about velocity for a second. A car driving down the highway doesn't have an absolute velocity. It travels at 60 miles per hour relative to the ground. If you're in a car, driving right next to it at the exact same speed, its velocity relative to you is zero. Manzotti applies this exact same physical logic to all objects. An object doesn't have absolute properties sitting in isolation, it only has properties relative to a specific physical body interacting with it.
This brilliantly illustrates the role of our bodies through what he calls the lake and dam analogy. Imagine a river flowing through a valley. If you build a dam, a lake forms. The dam doesn't magically create the water out of thin air, but the lake wouldn't exist without the causal condition of the dam being there. In this analogy, your body and your brain are the dam. The physical world is the flowing river, and the lake, the object pulled into relative existence, is your conscious experience. Your body itself doesn't feel or experience. It's just the physical condition that allows the external object to exist in that specific way.
This relative nature of the physical world beautifully explains why we all perceive things differently. Subjective variability isn't some magic trick your brain is playing on you, it's just the physical world offering different relative properties to different bodily dams. For example, a canvas might be white relative to a standard observer, but if you stare at a bright red light for a minute and become red fatigued, that same canvas is physically cyan relative to your newly adapted eyes. If you look at a digital screen from a foot away, it's white. Look at it through a microscope and it's a multicolored grid of pixels. The object sustains all of these physical properties simultaneously, relative to different bodies.
Okay, so a massive stress test for this theory naturally comes to mind right about now. The argument from illusion. If our experience truly is the physical object, what happens when we close our eyes? How can we possibly experience dreams or memories or hallucinations when the object isn't right there in front of us? If I hallucinate an apple, but there's no apple on the table, doesn't that prove my brain is generating the experience internally? Well, Manzotti says absolutely not, and the answer lies in the mind-bending physics of time.
We actually solve this by stretching out the concept of the present using the physics of time delay. Because of the speed of light and our own neural processing limits, absolutely everything we perceive is already in the past. When you look up at the moon, your experience is identical to the moon as it was about 1 second ago. When you look at the sun, it's the sun from 8 minutes ago. When you look at the stars, you are experiencing objects from literally years ago. Just think about that for a second. The present isn't a fixed, instantaneous moment. It's whatever past events are causally acting on your body right now. Dreams and memories are really no different than seeing a delayed star. They're just physical objects from your past that have taken a much longer, reshuffled causal path to reach your sleeping brain.
Manzotti actually points this out using a famous quote from Pablo Picasso, who said, "I don't create, I find." The source material notes that empirical evidence backs this up too. The brain cannot conjure up entirely new, phenomenal qualities. People born completely blind do not dream in color. We never dream of a brand new, completely unimaginable color hue. Our minds don't just magically concoct new elemental properties out of thin air. We only ever recombine physical properties we've already found and encountered in the external physical world.
So to really lock this concept in, how could your brain conjure up a hallucination or a dream of something completely absurd? Let's say you dream of a pink flying elephant. There is obviously no pink flying elephant standing in your bedroom. If your experience is identical to the external physical world, where exactly is the physical pink flying elephant hiding?
Well, a dream is essentially a chimera, an amalgam of actual past physical events. Imagine you saw a pink building today, an elephant at the zoo tomorrow, and a flying bird next week. A whole year later, you go to sleep. Your thalamic channels shut down, effectively blocking out the immediate room around you. This sensory block allows those specific past physical events, the pinkness, the elephant shape, the flying motion, to cross causal paths. They act jointly on your sleeping brain at the exact same time. The result? You are identical to a real but spatially and temporally spread out composite physical object.
The ultimate takeaway of this explainer is a total inversion of how we view ourselves in the universe. Traditionally, we've thought of ourselves as the end of the line, right? Just these passive neural effects reacting inside a dark skull to stimuli hitting our sense organs. Manzotti's theory flips this entirely on its head. We are not the neural effects. Our conscious experiences are literally the external causes themselves. When you look at a star, your experience isn't just the final neuron firing in your visual cortex. Your experience is the star itself, acting at a massive distance through your body.
So, if Manzotti's mind-bending yet strictly physical hypothesis is correct, what does it actually mean for your identity? Well, it means you are not your body. Your body is just the biological condition, the dam in the river, that allows your world to exist. You are the objects you experience. You are the red apple, the cyan canvas, the delayed starlight, and the reshuffled dream. You are the entire world you perceive. And I'll leave you with this final, really provocative thought to ponder. The next time you look out at a breathtaking landscape, realize that you aren't just looking at it, you actually are it.